good day, Andromeda. How are you?
I'm so happy to be sitting down with you, Mr.
I
Lezlie.
am so happy to be sitting down with you, and I'm so happy to have just heard you perform.
Oh, thank you.
Girl, I haven't seen you sing in a while. You have grown tremendously.
Thank you.
Now, does motherhood have anything to do with this?
It has a lot to do with it. It's shaped my practice because there's very little time to do so.
Absolutely.
And so my practice has had to be a lot more focused, and I can be like, oh, well, I'm going to try around with this or play around, I'm going to do this. I have to be very specific about my practice and what I'm spending my time on. And I think that's actually pushed me to be better and pushed me to really discover, what do I need to focus on? What do I need to strengthen, instead of casting a broad net?
Well, it's working because the depth and the emotion that you gave the songs, I've heard you over the years. And I was listening and I'm like, wow, she's really grown. And I was wondering how motherhood affected that, but also COVID with a lot of time to hone it.
Yeah.
You've also been working on this brand, Growing Up Jazz.
Yes.
Now, I've known you since you were a little girl.
Yeah, that's right.
And you've always been, in my mind, a performer and entertainer. I mean, you were destined for that, not only because your father, Steve Turre, and your mother, Akua Dixon Turre, are wonderful musicians. I heard you call your father I know him as a trombonist, but you said a cellist.
Yeah, I just made that up.
No, that was great. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to use that.
Right? Like, what else? Shell player didn't have the same ring to it. So.
No, well, your father's a cellist and a trombonist, and your mother's a cellist.
Oh, okay.
So it was kind of a natural. Do you think it was a natural progression that you become this entertainer? Because you're more than just a singer. You are the whole package, my dear.
I think it was all a part of the journey. I mentioned during the concert that I started as a dancer, because that was, for me, a lot of the music. The first thing that I picked up on was the rhythms. With my dad, it was more the swing rhythms, and my mom, it was a lot more gospel, soul, R&B, and all of these different rhythms was the first influence, and they made me want to dance. So I started as a dancer, and then I went into piano lessons, and then it was chords, and it was melody, and it was harmony, and then I joined a choir. Like, everything was a natural progression. When I was in high school, they had the choir had like a musical theater aspect. So then I started acting. Like, it was all just very natural, and it was environmental. It wasn't necessarily anything that I was like, I want to be an actress. I want to be a singer. It was just like, oh, this is here. What's this? I'll try this.
Right. Well, you also had your parents who both work on Broadway, worked with big jazz musicians and R&B. So you had that. But growing up as a child of these two wonderful musicians whom I love dearly, what an advantage to hang out with, to actually hang out and grow up around these musicians. How did that influence you?
It made me not only, there was so much like harmonically that I learned just through osmosis, and technically that I learned. For example, I played the egg shaker on a couple of the songs. Dizzy taught me how to play the egg shaker.
Dizzy Gillespie.
When I was...
Dropping names is not a bad thing.
Oh, God, I hate to do it.
No. That's a great one.
But that's how I learned to play. We were on tour, I believe Switzerland, possibly Germany, but I'm pretty sure it was Switzerland. And when we got there, there was no one backstage that could watch me during the concert. And the concert was sold out, so I couldn't sit in the audience. And Dizzy was very protective, and my dad too, obviously. And we're like, we're not just going to leave. I was less than 10 years old. They were like, we're not just going to leave her backstage by herself. So he gave me the egg shaker, and he was like, here, you're going to be in the band. I'm just like a little kid. I'm like, okay. And he's like, this is how you play it, and these are the rhythms. And like, we were like jamming, and so the whole concert I sat under the piano on the stage.
Wow.
There was no microphone, thank God. I'm sure my rhythm was horrible. But that was how I learned how to play the egg shaker. And so there were so many things that happened like that for the music, but also the history of the music. Also having great conversations with musicians about the social justice aspect of jazz, what it meant for them, because they were alive during the civil rights movement.
Absolutely.
And how that impacted their work, what that was like for them. Asking Dizzy what it was like to perform for segregated audiences, because I didn't have that experience. You know, these things were all a part of the toolkit that I was so generously gifted. And so now, as an adult, as a mother, looking at this society today and how far we've come, but how much farther we still have to go, I felt that it would be really selfish of me to not fully draw from all of my toolkit and only use certain gifts.
Well, you certainly had wonderful the elders around to give it to you firsthand.
Yeah.
And you did a song that I'm familiar with Abbey Lincoln. Abbey Lincoln and Max Roach. I love Abbey and I love Max.
Her so much.
And what a piece of material to tackle. That you did something from We in Africa.
Yeah.
From We Insist.
Yes.
That's pretty intense. I was very impressed. Yeah, because speaking of protest and civil rights, that was like that was the album, yeah.
Yeah. But that album is still relevant today. That album is still needed today. And I think that we're going to need it for a while. I think that a lot more people are starting to see what's really happening, but I think also with Abbey Lincoln.
Oh, yeah.
I love her so much, but also her journey, right? So if you look at her earlier career, she was very glamorous. She did acting. She was in For Love of Ivy. I think she got nominated for...
She got nominated for
supporting... Was a Golden Globe or a supporting actress? Maybe it was a cat. I don't remember. But she was doing like a lot of theatrical stuff, which is also something that I can relate to as a performer. And then you see this transition that she goes through when she gets together with Max. Not to say that she didn't care about social justice before, but you see her start to wear more natural hairstyles. You see her having social justice meetings in her living room, wearing her dashikis on stage. You see this beautiful transformation where earlier in her career, I mean, I think it was Ebony magazine, she was on the cover in a dress that Marilyn Monroe had worn. Like, very glamorized. And you sort of see this evolution, and I can really identify with that evolution as well, because it takes a certain kind of confidence to put yourself out there that way that I didn't necessarily have when I was younger. But that's the other thing about motherhood. You realize I have to have this courage because I have to create a better place for my children and for all children to exist in.
Well, that's a really, that's a big hat to wear, you know, trying to be a performer, but also being socially conscious. And especially now it's needed more than ever. You gave life to the, and shine the light also on women that are not recognized, that are marginalized. When you sang Strange Fruit, that was almost broke my heart. Because, you know,
I was trying so hard not to
I know, I saw you, I was too, and I'm like, oh, I just had my makeup done, I can't do it. But but you know, here we are in 2021, and here we are tearing up still about, you know, this song Strange Fruit. How did that play into your repertoire?
So I've always known the song, and I've idolized Billie Holiday for her life's work, not necessarily for the picture of her that is always displayed. I think she was so much more than what most people know about her. And the courage that it took to sing that song, right? Especially during that time, even now, it takes a certain amount of courage to sing that song. But when I was preparing for this concert in particular, and I was putting together my program, is when I mentioned Legend Smalls. That affected me so much. It was just earlier this year. His mother, Daisha Smalls, was just getting gas at a gas station, and a criminal got into her car and wanted to take her car with her baby in it. And she said, no, like, you're not driving out of here. That child is the same age as my son. And the cops showed up and they shot through the car trying to get the bad guy, and they shot her 1-year-old son in the head. And I remember seeing the video of her sitting in the front seat of her car, just losing her mind. And the trauma, that's why I said it's not only the people that are lost. Her son, I haven't been able to find out if he's still alive or not. But the trauma that she is experiencing, having our sons be born like within days of each other, and just realizing like, if that was me in that car, the same thing would have happened to my son, because a lot of people see somebody that looks like yourself or myself, and our lives don't matter to them.
Exactly.
That's what Black Lives Matter is. It's not, people get so worked up about this and think that it's an anti-white statement or an anti-police statement, and it's really none of those things. Right. If you look at Juneteenth, which is coming up, part of the order that was written on Juneteenth that freed the enslaved Africans promises us absolute equality. We still don't have that. We still don't have that absolute equality. And that is what it's asking for. And I think a lot of people get twisted because they do know the truth. And they know that if everything that has happened to Black Americans happened to them, they would be seeking revenge. Right. But we're not looking for revenge. We just want our lives to matter just as much as white lives. And so since we still have to be asking for something that was promised to us on June 19th, 1865, I had to sing Strange Fruit. There was no way around it when I was putting this together.
No, you sang it beautifully. And it's a really hard song to sing. Yeah. But you can't sing it without, especially as an African American, that having a connection to that song. So kudos to you for that.